Thank you for watching this. I'm here live with Pete DeVry, Arnold DeVry, and today we're just gonna dig a little bit deeper. I know they don't like to always talk about themselves, but I think it's nice for us to just learn a little bit more about the history of DeVry. So maybe if I can start with both of you, just quickly explain, born here in Canada, born in Holland, what's the history? When did you move here to Canada?
We're both born in Holland, in the town of Gouda, from the cheese. I moved here in '88, Aunt moved here in '89. Our parents had a greenhouse in Holland. Our grandparents had a greenhouse in Holland. When I was very young, we still grew tomatoes. I still remember as a 10-year-old going in and helping out with that, or sorting tomatoes, or having to put little paper inserts into these wooden crates that we put the tomatoes in. Then later on we moved to gerbras that we grew there, cut gerbras. And in '87 our parents sold the greenhouse, and in '88 and '89 we came to Canada.
So Canada, was that always the destination? Were you always going to come to Canada, or what was the journey?
It was actually interesting. My dad and I was working at the time in the States, and we were going to move somewhere in the United States, and we were going to explore the West Coast, and we flew into Vancouver because that was the easiest flight from Amsterdam. And except for maybe a 20-minute venture into Washington State, we were captivated by British Columbia, and we never left the province. And within a year, we moved here.
Arnold, what would you say is your first memory of working in a greenhouse in Holland?
Wow, that's quite a few moons ago. I was probably 10, 11, so I have a bit of vague memory of we still vegetables, but then we were into cut gerbras, and those things, they were grown, like these days they're in raised beds, but at that time, like, we had them right by the ground. So I remember, like, right after, like when you start the holidays and you start working in the flowers, you had to go right down to pick them. So always very sore backs the first week. You have to get through that, and then, after you get used to it. So I would say that's my first memory of working sore backs.
Sore backs, hard work, sore backs.
Yeah.
So when you came to Canada in '89, what was the first crop you grew, and why did you pick that crop?
I had worked for a couple of years in the States already, and I really liked the bedding plant industry, but with bedding plants come poinsettias. So our first crop here in Canada was poinsettias. We had the greenhouse finished by about August, and we got our first cuttings in also in August. And our first crop was in 1989, was the poinsettia crop.
That actually worked out really well. We were lucky to pick a dark red poinsettia that was, at that time they were all kind of light leaves, light color, light red. This was a really dark red lilo, and somehow that put us on the stage at the flower auction in Vancouver. So we kind of, I guess, beginner's luck. We had a really good crop the first year, and that kind of got us going.
So I think for some of us, when we walk through the greenhouse now, you see the growth, you see everything, nice new expansions. Sometimes you think it always just went just well. Do you have maybe some examples where you're like, it's not always what it looks like. There was a lot of hard work, blood, sweat, and tears.
Well, okay, so to finish my story, we started off with poinsettias. And so we thought we were on a roll, and then came the spring, and we had only geraniums, and we had a lot of geraniums. And the beginning of in April, the weather was good. We were selling pretty decent, but the majority of our crop was coming on in May. And there was 4 weekends of rain in a row, and we were just drowning in geraniums. We couldn't give them away. We put them even outside, and then we put them outside. We got a hailstorm over top. And I remember dumping them all. So a good part of that crop was done. So that was a reality check. We were on a bit of a high with poinsettias, and then came geraniums, and that took care of that. Yeah. Made us humble.
I can see that. Right now, we can see there's facilities here in Chilliwack, quite a few different greenhouses. There's a nursery, with container yards, field. In Alberta, there's farmland. You have a facility in Langley. What's the journey? What are some of the milestones where you go like, okay, like what brought you to buy Langley location? What brought you to Alberta? Like, why Alberta?
So yeah, there were definitely some milestones. Besides starting out, I think one big milestone was our first expansion. But then slowly but surely, we got customers and we grew with them, those customers. And then we had an opportunity to buy the greenhouse in Langley because one of our competitors was going out of business, who was also supplying the same customer. So even though we just came off not a great year, we did end up buying Langley. And that was a bit of a jumping board for us experiencing with having an offsite location. Then several years later, we got approached by our largest customer saying, if you are, service Alberta, we want you to have a local presence and have the plants grown in Alberta. So that's prompted us to buy land there and start our first greenhouse there in 2007.
Yeah, Langley was a big jump for us. All of a sudden we had 50% more growing area. Like Pete said, we were so used to having everything on our fingertips, nothing would move, like minute by minute almost, without us knowing it. And here we had to rely on our team there, to do it with us, because we would only be there once a week or twice a week, and so we learned a lot, and that gave us, again, like what Pete said, gave us the confidence to do the step into Alberta.
So one thing that we've seen over the years is Mr. DeVry, your dad, of course, we call him Colonel or Mr. DeVry. He comes to the office still every day for coffee and strategic talks and what to do next. What would you say is really
and not to do?
Yeah. But I would say really, what do you think is kind of his philosophy, his message that he's really drilled into you? And something that you want to drill into future generations and everybody else that gets to work for this company?
You want to take it up?
Definitely quality. Work on your quality first and then work on your costing later. But without quality, you're sunk. You can have all the costing figured out. But I remember way back in the early days, we would be shipping a few poinsettias and tackle half a bay that were still pot tight and spacing them out again. We were always shipping, spacing, and whatever it took to grow the best plant. And he always said, if you grow nice plants, financially it will work out.
Absolutely true. There's many examples of where we, he never looked what would it cost, do the extra step, always, never sacrifice your quality. The other big thing that he's also on is being humble. He doesn't, and I think we both have inherited that. Like, don't become anything with having the amount of acres or land you have. Just normal, and just work hard. I think that's the bottom line.
Well, I think that's, and also brings to another great question, is sometimes in businesses someone wakes up, says, hey, I'm going to build this business into this empire or whatever it might be. I'm not saying DeVry is an empire. It's a beautiful player in Western Canada that gets to supply trees from here to New York, all over Canada, ship national. I think with bedding plants, right? You ship into Alaska, Washington, Oregon, Montana, Idaho, BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba. Like, you have a broad reach, but when you started in 1989 and you grew your first poinsettias, did you ever imagine you'd be here? And what's your philosophy on when did you grow? Like, when did it make sense to grow?
Absolutely. Like when we started in 89, we thought we were going to be 200 acres. So we're underperforming right now. Absolutely. No, Pete, you could tell it.
No, we never ever, and still don't have a number in our head where we want to grow to. It has always been fueled by opportunity. We had opportunity come up right at the very first crop. We had another greenhouse that had a huge whitefly problem with their poinsettias, and we were able to have an opportunity to have our plants in the stores, which are today our largest customer. So it was always opportunity driven. We saw an opportunity and we went for it and did our best. And growth and dollars have never ever been the reason.
Yeah.
So what would you say now, just to wrap up this quick history, for all those watching you right now, what message would you give to them for them working here, for their families being supported, for customers maybe watching this? It's a hard question, but what kind of a message, what would you say to them?
I don't know. I think it's pretty simple. Just do your best. Use your talents that have been given to you. You know, if you're healthy, work hard. Physically, use your brains, and things will come your way. You know, I think it's pretty basic. I think that's the bottom line. Just do your best. Do what you can.
Yeah, definitely. First of all, I want to say to everybody who works for us, thank you so much for being part of our team. You have no idea how much that means to us. To any customers, thank you so much. You know, we feel honored to be servicing you and having you buy our plants. You know, we touch a lot of lives with our plants that go out. You don't always realize it, but sometimes you get some feedback from a lady that got one of our plants and is just overjoyed by the beauty of it. Biggest thing is, let's work hard, stay humble, and have a good time doing it.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing a little bit more into yourself and kind of what the history of the last 32 years. I think the future looks bright, as we know a buyer used to say, but I honestly feel this company is, there's a lot of fun, exciting things. And I think we are inspired as a team to keep going. And thanks for leading this organization.